Welcome to the Spring Football Reports. Tonight, Michael Washington, that's me. I'm taking over the hosting for the evening. I'm here with Krish. I'm here with our fantasy DFS expert who loves to humbly brag about all his alternative football wins on Twitter, Mark. And Christian Pearce is with us tonight, all the way out in San Diego, looking beautiful with the weather out there as well. First and foremost, guys, I want to start off with the breaking news or the big news that was posted not at some point in time today. Mike Mitchell has posted, everybody's favorite alternative football news reporter, Mike Mitchell, has posted an article saying the XFL is going to run 3 separate drafts this offseason. The first one that was announced is going to be the rookie-only draft, which is the rookies that you have to be eligible for this year. There is going to be another draft that is going to be supplemented after the NFL cuts, after the preseason, heading into the regular season. And then there's going to be another supplemental draft later on in the year. First and foremost, Christian, I want to get your thoughts on the XFL because we know that the showcases are coming up and they have a combine that they're going to do. Are you surprised that they're doing 3 separate drafts instead of just 2?
Oh, man.
I think, I said Christian, but I think he's on mute. I don't know if he realizes it or not, but go ahead, Christian. Oh, Christian muted himself. So, Christian, go ahead. Maybe I should have done the Mark first.
The names were a bit similar, so I totally got you. All right. With the showcases, I think it's interesting because those guys are gonna kind of be the first to go in, and obviously with some guys that are on the NFL teams, it gives them that chance. So the first wave makes total sense to me. Second one is obvious because there's a lot, like I said, the guys that are teams now that are not going to make it after the preseason. Makes sense for there to be second. And then I'm assuming the third one would probably be around what the first draft was, in November, kind of mid-season where teams are faltering NFL teams are faltering oh, we're not going to do great this year, or oh, we need to make the final push of going into the playoffs. So I think it's very interesting that it's going to split rather than USFL's college draft where they're just doing it once and then that's it, and they don't even guarantee if they get that guy if they make it to an NFL team. So I think it's definitely a better strategy than the USFL so far.
Krish, what about you? What are your thoughts on this? Is this a smart move by the XFL to implement 3 separate drafts instead of just doing 2?
Yeah, I mean, I love the rookie draft, right? There's a lot of good rookies, especially quarterbacks, that are still out there. Names that come to my mind, obviously, I saw in the article by News Hub, is Nicosi Perry, Kyle Rantrice from Georgia Southern, I think. These guys are really, really good, and they deserve an opportunity to play at a high stage. But the NFL cut one, I'm kind of confused on how that will work. Because what type of guys are you going to be targeting? Guys who were already in the league prior, or guys who were rookies, part of the 7 rounds that got cut? So that's a little confusing to me. And then is it going to be like the USFL draft where majority of the guys decided not to go because they'd rather just wait for an NFL opportunity? And then the third draft, my biggest question is how are they going to have enough space? I heard they were expanding rosters from 55 to 90 for preseason, right? Something like that. Is it 90 or is it 53?
I haven't seen anything as far as numbers personally, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, so I like the idea. It'll make it interesting for sure.
Mark, what do you expect from these 3 drafts? How do you feel that, or how do you feel it's going to go as far as the target player pool is going to be over the course of the three drafts? You think?
Well, I think that I think this is the right move. I think number one, it shows that the league is committed towards making it a year-round league versus almost just taking a seasonal approach. And the league is also trying to get the best talent possible while also respecting the fact that, I mean, look, every single one of these players, they ultimately are trying to make it to the NFL, I would say, for the most part. Very small group of players who have kind of let that ship sail. So, I think overall, at the beginning, you are looking to let the players know, hey, you're on our radar, just in case things don't work out. Want to make sure we can leave the door open here for you. And then as we progress, they're kind of allowing them to get involved pretty much at any time, given the fact that we have 3 different drafts. So they're saying, hey, look, like if you're not seeing the opportunities, like, here's another time for us to, start to move forward here and get you involved with the team. And the earlier we can get you involved, the better chance you have at playing time, come the start of the season and when camp starts up. So I think it's necessary, quite honestly, when you think about it. It seems like a lot from an initial perspective, but at the end of the day, I think given the volatility and the amount of things that can change for a lot of these guys with the invites and getting called up and added to practice squads, I think it's necessary.
Yeah, when I first heard about this, and when it was brought to my attention, my first initial thought was the rookies only draft that's going to take place first is the undrafted guys that weren't signed to contracts but invited to camps. I think that's going to be a lot of the target because they don't have the contract necessarily there. They're on NFL radars, but they're not really, there through the camps on the official rosters. And then I felt the NFL cuts for obvious reasons. They're going from 90 to 53 or whatever it is in the matter of basically 2 weeks now because there's no cut stages anymore. So I felt that the NFL cut draft was going to be kind of necessary for maybe those guys that end up on practice squads or don't end up necessarily on the practice squads and might want to come down like the Brett Hundleys of the world or whatever it may be. And then at the end, obviously, it's going to be players that were injured or anything along those lines that didn't necessarily stick. They might have stuck on an NFL roster for a certain period of time to the season, got cut, and are trying to prove themselves back into the league. So I think it's necessary too. I think it's smart to do a year-round aspect of that. Pearce, you could have left that hat backwards, but what do you got to say, my man?
I just try to see you can see my eyes.
I'm
that's curious about the second wave is because I'm thinking about, I don't know how CFL contracts work, but I know the CFL season ends in the summer, right? Like August,
ends in November.
Ends in November. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Because I was going to say, I felt like that would have been perfect timing too with CFL because I didn't remember when it started. But carry on.
No, that's fair. I mean, the CFL is a much longer season than I think people realize it is. And when that happens, it kind of, I think it factors in. But CFL's also got their draft that they did, and some of these players that they drafted are in the NFL or were drafted into the NFL as well. So I think it's what's great about it is it's providing options for everybody, whether it was the USFL rookie draft and these 3 XFL drafts that are going to take place. It's providing opportunities for them. Krish, I want to talk to you real quick because you are very, very adamant and very excitable about the historical Black colleges and universities getting kind of some love and attention from the XFL, where some other leagues don't necessarily give them the attention. The showcase is coming up. What about it that you love so much, other than the obvious?
Yeah, I mean, HBCUs, are overlooked a lot, right? And they're ball players, I see it. I mean, I've got a ball player by the name of Jimmy Robinson, best running back in the IFL, right? And so imagine if the XFL was around when he was playing. Imagine where he would be now. I mean, let's really think about that, right? So there are so many guys out there that just need a look. And these schools, right, a lot of these facilities at HBCUs are not well kept. They're just not in good shape. And so that's not really the first place where someone goes to look for talent. And so the fact that they're doing it and they're being like respectful of where these guys play at, and they're even considering doing it at some of these fields is really respectable by the XFL, because it shows they're willing to go the extra mile to find talent no matter where it is. So
Yeah, I completely agree, Krish. It's actually one of the few things that I really love about the XFL is their willingness to show the HBCUs, the universities and their opportunities. There's 6 cities, which I find interesting because 2 of them outside of the HBCU, well, actually, I guess 50% of them are all taking place in cities or states that don't actually have an XFL team. Pearce, do you think that that's by design for a possible maybe scouting opportunity for expansion when the XFL runs down that road, assuming they get to that crossroad?
I think for sure. I think at this point, like just how the XFL and how like Dwayne and Danny have made it seem, it's like they want to try to be their own. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's them slowly building up to like scouting and all that. It just makes sense to me, just how the XFL seems and what they're trying to present out there right now.
For sure. Mark, are you a little bit surprised that Hawaii isn't on this list for the showcase this year?
Yeah, I guess I'm not surprised, but I mean, I think it'd be a cool idea. And obviously, The Rock has some connections with Hawaii, but I feel like it's also like the some of the cities are just like logistically, they logistically make more sense. Like Atlanta is like an international travel city, international airport. So some of them are just regionally attractive locations, and then you have like St. Louis, who obviously is, in my opinion, that is the capital of the XFL, despite the fact that it's not.
Yeah, no, you're right.
The fanhood and everything else kind of lies there, but so I think it's more that than anything. It's just the locations logistically make the most sense, in my opinion.
Well, Arizona was the one that kind of stuck out to me a little bit, just because you have one in Houston, and Arizona kind of might be close enough to that target California area, and Vegas is just north of it. So, but that was the one that just kind of stuck out to me, and that's the reason why I asked Pearce the original question about maybe it was a scouting thing for expansion, because Arizona is one of those areas that, like, the hot shots in the AAF, they actually had some fans show out for that, and I think all of us can agree that the AAF didn't do a really good job of community relations, and the fact that they still had some people show out. So there might be an untapped source there for that, but I was just curious as far as what everybody's thoughts were on that. So the XFL will have 6 cities. They'll have 6 showcases this year over the course of the summer, and then they'll do an NFL Combine. Now we can move on to the USFL weekend. I can't believe we're heading into Week 8 already. Week 7 action. I mean, and maybe it's because the XFL went through their part of the season with it, or whatever, but it just feels like this season is flying by. We'll start with game number 1 on this list. Birmingham defeated the New Orleans Breakers 24-20. I'm pretty sure I think almost everybody on this panel picked New Orleans except for maybe one of us. I don't know, Mark, was that you, or did you pick New Orleans in that game? I can't remember.
Know if I was on last week.
Or no, maybe you weren't.
This one was tough for me to figure out. Just even like I was looking at like bets that I was going to post for our subs, and I couldn't figure this one out. I thought it was kind of a toss up, and I think Birmingham showed that they were just, quite honestly, the better team. I have issues with how New Orleans is. I think it goes beyond talent. Like if you look at their roster, the talent is tremendous. Like if you pinpoint any offensive player, it's like, oh yeah, he's good. Johnny Dixon, he's good. Johnny Adams, he's good. Sage Surratt, like best tight end in the league. Wes Hills, like arguably the best running back in the league. MBT, he's more than capable of filling his role. Like so it's for me, it's hard to pinpoint other than the fact that they're just not playing good team football. We're not taking care of the ball. We're, committing stupid penalties, and they also have an issue defending the run. They're not the worst team in the league by any means in defending the run, but they're certainly not strong on that point. And I think ultimately what is happening is they're losing the time of possession battle, and and then they're making bad penalties and stupid mistakes. And that's been New Orleans' issue the last several weeks, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that about the run, and there are definitely some issues in the center of that. Pearce, New Orleans and Birmingham was, it was a close game. I think most everybody that predicted this might be a close game. Was there any takeaways for you, surprises in this game as far as how it went?
I think it was kind of the same old for Birmingham. Like, defense was strong, and then our offense was just, I do think Marable having a huge game was a big, I would say, a surprise, because I think most people expect him to kind of be just about average, and a lot of people were kind of like, oh, stop running with Marable. But he ended up kind of shutting some people up with how well he performed that game. And then, obviously, with Quinn Poling, that dude just went off. I don't know if it was maybe because he's drinking whatever the heck Scooby Wright's drinking. I don't know if that's just how good our defense is, but like, he went off that game, and I'm really happy that he got Defensive Player of the Week with John Atkins, because he definitely deserved that. That being said, with the Breakers, I was just a little, I guess what was shocking to me was MBT's play. And a lot of people were wanting him gone, like in the first half. They're like, we're done with him. Like, just replace him with a Quill. And I thought it was interesting because, like, he was an MVP, like, talk. And I wonder if this game, just how well it went down, if it goes down. And honestly, another thing would be that Alex Magoo, talk him up as MVP, because, like, it's a bit biased as a Stallions fan, but, like, just anytime he's out there, he's putting 110%. And sometimes he even saves the game. So I think it was a good win for Stallions. I still think we have a little struggles every now and then, like, that they just need to work out in the playoffs, because I'm thinking they're going to get there.
Krish, what are your takeaways from this game? Anything that surprised you or shocked you here?
Yeah, what shocked me is you can have a game on national television with absolute horrible officiating. All right, because I watched football for a long time, man. That was catch. So, it's stuff like that makes the XFL better. It really is. I mean, that was really, really embarrassing. I don't know. I mean, that catch at the end, though, that throwing catch was awesome. I thought they had a shot. But no, I think it was a good game. Maybe I'm saying that because I picked the Breakers plus 2.5. So, they did sell a little bit, but no, I think I've seen a lot of stuff on social media about Magoo and his attitude and everything, and him on the sideline throwing his helmet. I love Magoo. I love how Magoo plays with that swagger. He reminds me of a more healthier Johnny Manziel. But in all seriousness, no, like Birmingham, I was impressed with the attendance too. Like, the fans showed out, but let's face it, what else is there to do in Birmingham other than a couple liquor stores? So I'm happy that the USFL had some fan support, and it was a great game. I think it was the best game of the weekend. So yeah.
The thing that surprised me is I'm glad that, Mark, you mentioned about the run, because Fernandez and Diggs, for all that they are at the linebacker position, they do seem undersized in the middle as far as that position is concerned. It almost feels like it might be outside of the defensive tackles, who obviously can't seem to stop a run, especially CJ Marable eating us alive, but they kind of just feel like that they're a little bit undersized and get outmatched there. And maybe that's just, a scheme thing for all we know with that, but it definitely needs to be cleaned up. That's for sure. Because I think the defense here is by far probably the weakest point of the Breakers team.
Yeah, they need to. I think you're right. It might even be more of a schematic issue than anything. Like, if the coaching staff can pinpoint this and mix some things up, confuse the quarterbacks. I mean, look, it's not hard to confuse a quarterback on this level of football. Like, let's just be real about that. So go out and do something a little bit different than what you've done so far this year, because clearly the book is out. Like, this was, if I myself, I am a fantasy football like person, and I chose the roster CJ Marable at captain because I knew that the Breakers had issues defending the run. Like, then they need to figure it out. They need to do something different, because it's clearly very obvious this is how you attack them, and this is the game plan to beat the Breakers.
I will say the one thing about the Breakers in this situation that I did like better, though, was the offense was way more impressive than it was the last 2 weekends. They seemed to be a little bit more in rhythm, a little bit more in shape. MBT did struggle a little bit, but a lot of them made mistakes across the board. Once they got to the red zone, there was some penalties, a turnover by West Hills heading into Birmingham, the green zone, whatever you want to call it, depending if you're on defense or offense there. And a lot of mistakes that were made that New Orleans didn't make in the first 4 weeks. Like, it was one of the big things that was telling with the broadcast, USFL broadcast. And then on top of that, Joel Klatt brought up an interesting point, and it was the relationship between Alex Magoo and why can't I think of his name down there? Who was the head coach in Birmingham?
Skip Holtz.
Yeah, Skip Holtz. That's his name. I was thinking of one of the XFL. I was thinking of the Arlington coach, and Skip Holtz, and then MBT and Coach Flip, and how those two on timeouts, the interactions between the two, which I found interesting because Coach Flip had MBT in Philadelphia in 2016 when they went on that Super Bowl run. MBT was there, so there was a previous relationship between the two. So I'm a little bit surprised that Joel Klatt called that out. Do you think there's anything there, or do you think it's just the way that Coach Flip and MBT just operate?
I don't think it's. I think it is two different coaching styles. So I think that they kind of made a bigger deal about that than what it is. Personally, I just think they just have made very sloppy mistakes at critical moments in games the last several weeks. Like, you have the West Hills fumble. You have 2 weeks ago the West Hills unsportsmanlike penalty. Like, so I hate to say this, but like, West Hills, very talented player. He can put it in a whole other gear. But quit jawing, man. Like, get the hell back to the huddle and move on. Like, just because you gained 11 yards doesn't mean you need to start jawing with everyone and potentially draw a flag. Go back to the huddle, and maybe celebrate or something when you get in the end zone. Like quit with the crap in between the 40s here. I don't know. That's
I agree.
an upset new Breakers fan grievance, but
well, no, I agree with you though. I mean, I think that that's one of the biggest things that has shot New Orleans in the foot, and during this 3-game losing streak, is they're getting out of rhythm. The defense hasn't been able to stop anybody, especially on third down, and we know that this offense is very much a rhythm offense. Like, they need to be in the go. Even when the defense couldn't stop Houston was scoring so quickly. The New Orleans offense was back on the field, and that's why they were able to outgun them. These long, sustainable drives are causing issues with the New Orleans offense, and I think that's probably one of the biggest things that's happening with that team. So, positives and negatives in both sides. We'll see what happens moving forward. We'll jump to probably the most surprising game of the weekend. The Philadelphia Stars beat the Pittsburgh Maulers 37-31. If I am correct, I don't think anybody that I spoke to predicted this to go on the over. Mark, you're a resident DFS guy. We'll start with you first. Did this game surprise you at all, considering the field goal slugfest that's been happening with Philadelphia the last three weeks?
I was definitely a little bit surprised, but I stayed away from like recommending any bets to anyone on this game, just because of the fact that the Stars defense is pretty darn bad, especially against the run. This was just, I thought Pittsburgh was gonna win this game. And I felt that at the end of the day, Case Cookus has a lot more protection now. I don't know what's going on, what they did to adjust or change that, but it's not perfect, but he's definitely getting more help. I don't know if he's more comfortable. He's getting the ball out a little bit quicker too. So this offense has completely changed on that side of the ball. Unfortunately, defensively, they still are absolutely horrible against the run, and not much better against the pass. So they have created turnovers when they need to, but um, I think we're going to see more shootouts with the Stars moving forward, because the offense seems like it's starting to click again.
I mean, it's nice to see the Stars and moving forward in that sense, because it wasn't looking good there for a while. Pearce, is there any takeaways from this game that kind of surprised you of any sort when it came to the overall result of this game?
I think personally, overall, I think maybe like you guys are kind of putting out there, maybe the Stars have finally kind of stroke a match, and maybe they're finally trying to get it together for the the home stretch. But just kind of foresighting, they're going to go against the Stallions next week, and obviously, the Stallions' defense has been pretty hard to come by. Not saying it's undefeatable, but it's going to be hard, and I think that will tell what is going to happen. But I do think maybe they probably did finally strike something against the Maulers. And for the Maulers, this is just a loss that they're going to have to take. I think they still played a pretty good game. And we're just going to have to see next week if they can also just maybe pull off a win there.
I will point out the special teams did flip the whole game on its head. Like the number of special teams plays that were made in this game was and shout out to Sam for that one, because he pointed out Wright with a nice return game. So go ahead.
Wright did have a good return game, and the special teams was definitely very prominent and on point with this. Krish, what about you? Takeaways from this game? Anything that surprised you at all?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I was watching my Boston Celtics, so I didn't really have time to check out this game. But I turned it on for a couple minutes. I think the first thing that wasn't surprising is that there were no fans. But I think that I'm happy for the Stars. I'm happy for Sam. Obviously, his Philadelphia teams kind of sell on him every year. Sixers, Flyers, Eagles. So the one of his, he considered it 4 major teams, which was kind of funny because no one in Philadelphia knows about the Stars. But I think that Case is really starting to find his rhythm, and I'm really happy for him and his offense. The offensive line definitely picked it up from what I've seen. I watched the highlights. Obviously the Maulers, man, like they need to figure out a way to close out games. They need to figure out a way to I know Pearce is like a Maulers and a Stallions fan, so it's like he understands how it is. But like, man, I want to see more effort from the Maulers side. I hope that DN gets better. Yeah, he's predicting a Stars loss. I mean, at least he knows, man. 24-point swing. But no, I think it was a semi-exciting game. I think the Breakers and Stallions game was the game of the week for me. So yeah.
I was just more surprised at the amount of points scored here. I mean, 24-point swing, in special teams wise is huge, but I find it interesting that you take a look at the North, and I feel like we've talked about Pittsburgh, we've talked about Michigan, we've talked about Philadelphia, and we've talked about New Jersey, and yet those records look so much worse than when we sit here and talk about them every week, because a lot of parity in this league of close games, and there really hasn't been a ton of blowouts. Even the blowouts we've projected just haven't happened. And the fact that this is 37-31 in this game, I mean, it's great for Philadelphia and what that team has been going through. But I don't know what's happening with Pittsburgh. They seem to be so close. Maybe it's just a lack of discipline. I feel like maybe could be contributing to some of these close losses. But I'd be very interested to see what the stat line is for Pittsburgh's 2-5 record. How many of those games were lost by one score or less? Because it's got to be at least 3 that I can think of that were pretty damn close. So we'll move on. We'll move on to the Houston Gamblers as some people's power ranking #1 team in the league. Sam knows what I'm talking about if you're still listening. Lost to the Memphis Showboats 20-23. Memphis has really turned it around the last few weeks. This is something that I think has surprised some people. Pearce, is there anything in this game that kind of surprised you at all, other than maybe the result here?
All I can say is thank you, Memphis. I'm not a Todd Haley guy. I'm not. I don't like him. But thank you for the loss to the Gamblers, because that's just going to help out the Stallions since we lost to them. But aside from that, I'm more shocked at this point that Memphis is being successful as they are, because didn't Derek Dillon have a game-winning touchdown, do well in special teams this game? I think, right? He was up for
this game. It was a wide receiver. It was a pass that he took to the house. I think it was 73 yards maybe, and he had that 109-yard missed field goal return for a touchdown not too long ago. So, yeah.
So I would still consider it a close matchup. I don't know. I kind of feel like at this point the Showboats are kind of like the Vikings of USFL, where they're playing way higher than they were supposed to be right now. So I'm a little shocked that the Gamblers just didn't win this one, but it was a game-winning touchdown. So you can't. I feel like they're gonna just push it off, and they're just gonna be able to get it done the next week. I think this is just a slight setback that I hope Birmingham takes advantage of.
Yeah, Mark, your thoughts on this one? Is this something that surprised you at all, and has it changed your opinion on Memphis at all over the course of the last few weeks? I mean,
this was the game that I was most excited about coming into this weekend, just because of the fact that you had 2 teams that were on the upswing doing well. What was upsetting for me was Kenji Bahar's inability to utilize Justin Hall. There were several plays where he missed Hall that could have completely changed the outcome of that game. Justin Hall, multiple times, had his guy beat 30 yards downfield, 40 yards downfield, and Bahar missed him on multiple occasions. So I just felt like Kenji Bahar, that's a little bit more acceptable when it's your first week coming back, but now we're 2 weeks in and you're missing throws, you're doing the same thing. I'm curious if they're going to ever try and mess around with Wilson again. When he came in that 1 week, he had a beautiful throw downfield, and he can also use his legs a lot more effective on the ground than Bahar. And the Houston defense is not good. So the rest of that offense is good. It'll keep them in games. Mark Thompson, arguably the best back in the league. It's between him and Hills. And on the Memphis side, I think Derek Dillon has been the story the last 2 weeks. The guy has completely changed what the season looks like for them on a week-to-week basis. And he's clearly shown his ability to, change the game in one play. So,
see, for me with that, sorry, go ahead. Finish off your thought there. I thought you were done there, Mark. Sorry.
Oh, the only other thing I was just going to say is their run game was very impressive too, but that's as expected. Houston's not good against the run, and Memphis has been pretty solid on that same front. So
I feel like something clicked with Memphis on the front 4 on defense, because that pass rush has absolutely flipped the script for Memphis and allowed them to start winning games here. And everybody knows that a good pass rush is a good way to hide a suspect secondary. And let's be honest, Memphis had a suspect secondary for the beginning half of the year, and now their pass rush is starting to get there, and they might have the best pass rush in all of the league. it's definitely pretty close. And if Kareth White can continue running the way that he is, I think that Memphis could be a team that could make a lot of noise, especially in the South, and surprise some people down, especially in these last few games. Krish, any takeaways on the Showboats Gamblers game?
Yeah, I think my Pirates would beat the Showboats. I'm actually dead serious about that. They are so blamed.
Massachusetts Pirates.
The
Massachusetts
2021 IFL champion, baby. But no, I think it's, I don't know. This game, watching it was kind of boring. Watching Memphis as a whole, watching Todd Haley, I'm not a fan of Todd Haley, to be honest. I know in the beginning you mentioned someone ranking the Houston #1. That someone is Mr. RJ Young, one of my favorite college football analysts. But obviously, I obviously don't think he's very well informed about the USFL. He probably doesn't even watch the games and just goes on there and talks about it. But I think Houston will bounce back. Houston's a great team. Curtis Johnson's a great coach. They'll be fine. It's just, every team has an off week. I mean, the Breakers have had, 2 off weeks now? So
three off weeks in a row.
3 off weeks now. But, you just have to get it right? And so I'm confident in Houston. I think right now Houston is a better team than Birmingham,
Well, Krish, I'll give you some bad news right quick. Jason Tatum has rolled his ankle.
I'm watching that right now, actually.
Okay, well, then we'll jump to the Panthers Generals game so we can get you out of here after your hot take segment if you want to go. I know you are excited about that. So the Panthers Generals game Panthers ended up winning 25-22. Krish, what were your thoughts about this game? And then you can give us a quick hot take because you already gave us a few through the night. So.
I'm gonna end the night off strong. Generals, it sucked to see DJ get hurt. He went down. Kyle came in and did what Kyle does, drive down the field. He also likes to drive down the highway, but that's a different story. But I think that it was a good game, man. Josh Love, I know that's Pat's team, so Pat was probably so happy that Michigan finally bounced back. I'm still surprised that they haven't given Eric Barrier a chance. I really don't know what's wrong with EB. EB3 needs to get some love, get a couple drives or something. But no, Panthers were able to capitalize. I have to say my boy Toby played really well against Reggie. He really did a good job, so I'm proud of Toby. Toby, if you're watching this, man, hit the gym, So I want to see some things get corrected, but I know Toby's already working out on his game. But yeah, no, lot of love and a lot of respect for that Generals team, and I don't know if they'll bounce back, to be honest, until they figure out their quarterback situation going forward. Because I don't know how you can rock with Kyle going forward. I think you need to bring in another option. My option would be TJ Edwards from the Frisco Fighters to bring in. Honestly, so. But yeah, so that's my last hot take of the night. Let's go Celtics. Hopefully the Philadelphia Stars lose again because, man, I'm having to hear about that team in the chat is watching paint dry. So hopefully, down and yeah, have a good rest of your night, and I will see you next Monday probably. So let's go.
Peace out, Krish. Enjoy your game. Oh, okay. So now that that's out of the way, Mark, Michigan and New Jersey here. What were your takeaways for this one?
This was the surprise for me of the weekend. So I did not expect Michigan to be able to throw the ball like they did against New Jersey. I think that was obviously that changed the whole game. And I think you said it on Twitter, Joe Walker was the difference because they had Trey Quinn, they had their underneath guy, but now you add in the element of Joe Walker and you use him effectively. He not only had that big play for the touchdown, but he had several other big kind of moments and catches throughout the game. So I thought that was the difference. Their ability to throw the ball like they did against the Generals, which is a defense that has been able to not allow a lot of passing yards all the way up until this point in the season. So on the flip side, I agree with Krish in the sense that it was really it was very unfortunate to see DJ get hurt. Also because not only because of the fact that he got hurt and it was a serious injury, but the other fact that it seemed like they finally decided to go back to him. Like it almost seemed like they made that commitment, and now we went right back to Kyle Lauletta. I have an issue with how they handled this whole situation over the last couple of weeks. Like it just the fact that you're going to go out on TV right during the game and say that DJ's going to get in and then he doesn't. It pretty much tells everyone that you don't know what you're doing and you don't know what your game plan is. Like if you don't have a plan in place for that and you say you're going to do something and then you don't, it tells everyone that you're not organized and prepared.
I didn't understand that at all, to be honest with you. I was shocked by it. I thought DJ was healthy enough to play in that game 2 weeks ago. And then you say that he's going to be there and then he does. I don't know. It just something's disorganized with New Jersey. I don't know if they're going to be able to rebound from it. Lauletta's not really, he played all right down the stretch, but he doesn't provide anything that DJ provides. And maybe we'll see Prukop more. Maybe he gets a little more of a run again. He comes in because he's a little more similar to DJ. So maybe Mike Riley does this little 2 quarterback thing again. I don't know how they're going to proceed with it, but New Jersey season may be over with there. Pearce, what about you? Thoughts on this here with this Michigan game?
Yeah, to add on, it is just been confusing for New Jersey with the whole quarterback thing. It's and Mike Riley was head coach of the year last year. So it's even more confusing to me that he's making these decisions and just on that factor. But when it comes to the game, I think this game surprised me more than the Memphis game because we all kind of predicted the Panthers just weren't good enough. But this was kind of just show how sporadic this team is and how much Mike Nolan just isn't a good head coach. It's just so ridiculous. It was just upsetting to see it. And yeah, Krish said about EB3, people were complaining on Twitter about it. Just put him in. And I'm just that's what happens when you have Mike Nolan as your coach. There's a reason why Dallas got rid of him. He wasn't a good coach overall. He was defensive coordinator, but he was still a coach, and we got rid of him. So, I just think the Panthers have playing exactly how I expected them to play with Mike Nolan. And at this point, I don't see them getting better. This was just a fluke. More fluke than the Memphis game because they actually look like they're doing better. They're on a winning streak. Panthers are just bad. So I just consider this a fluke win, and that's basically it. That Mike Nolan, just get rid of him.
Yeah, we're now joined by Freddie, who was in the comments chatting away here and whatnot. We're on the Michigan Panthers game. A little bit. What were your thoughts, Freddie? We'll jump right in on that. What your thoughts were, and then we'll let you have the floor for a minute.
So full disclosure, I was kind of distracted, and there was a lot of football to watch this week in all different leagues. But I did get to catch some of I think yesterday's USFL games, and so I caught whichever day was Michigan.
Yep.
And so I saw a little bit of that. And I know Josh Love put up some pretty good numbers, and he was voted Offensive Player of the Week, I believe, by the fans on Twitter. But it seemed like kind of a rocky start, at least, to that game for him.
The game was brutal at the beginning half of the first half.
Didn't both quarterbacks start somewhere 1-6 passing?
It was awful. It was like Philadelphia Stars playing the Philadelphia Stars from the last 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I have my stuff pulled up. So let me.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know Freddie, he is.
Oh.
We'll never know who I am now.
I know. Well, maybe Freddie, if you just want to tell us who you are, we'll go from there.
So I'm a friend of Sam's. I think I know where he was going with that, but one of the things I do in a lot of these alt leagues is I have models for projecting and predicting and forecasting where things are going. Is that where you were going, Mike?
Yeah, it was a wrong button over here. I'm kind of I got
Happens.
fat hands sometimes, so it happens. But yeah, I was just gonna let Freddie know he's our analytic guy who pops in and has a connection with Sam, and he's been on the show a couple times and provides a forecast model of stuff. So
And I'm not in my studio right now because, so long story short, my brother got married on the 20th.
oh,
And
congratulations,
so
brother.
from like a couple days after that until this morning, we were taking care of his cat.
Oh,
he has a cat who is a fast little guy and likes to get into stuff. And so the guest room where we all had all his food and his litter box and all that set up is where my studio normally is. And so I took down all my lighting and all the stuff that he could get into and wreck. And so that's not up right now. I'm probably gonna get it set up, in time for my fan-controlled television appearance tomorrow night. But yeah, that's why I'm here in front of a window and the
in
lighting's
front
all
of a
bad.
window. At least you have an office.
Hey,
I would love to have
yeah.
one. And Mark, as you can tell, has the same background up since 1999.
Hey,
2020.
Until you change it, Mark, I'll probably mention it every time you're
Tarnish
visiting.
the Vipers, bro.
I already decided I'm keeping it forever. So
You're gonna keep it forever.
Alright.
I mean, I don't blame you, to be honest with you. I know it's fair. That's very fair. I just wanted to give you a little crap about that, obviously. So, all right. Well, real quick, I'm gonna jump into my "Don't Impress Me Much" segment. Freddie, we'll come back to you in 1 second. This is gonna be fairly quick. So,
Sure thing.
with that said,
that don't impress me much.
yeah, this week on the "Don't Impress Me Much," it's definitely going to end up being the officiating for the USFL all this weekend. I mean, outside of the debacle that held up the game in the Breakers Stallions game, there was a couple calls in that game that were a little suspect. A touchback, Mike Pereira was like, there was a hand on the ball, or didn't really look like there was a hand on the ball. And then the incomplete pass that was the holdup at the end of the game, it looked like the receiver corralled the ball. Maybe I'm biased because I'm a Breakers fan. Regardless of that situation, the fact that you didn't know what you were doing and it took so long to get that figured out, it was awful. There were holding calls. There was a blatant roughing the passer call that wasn't called when a guy clubbed in the helmet twice. It just overall just a really bad look from the USFL with the officiating. And I know Mike Pereira has a tendency to stick with the calls that are on the field. He very rarely turns them over. It was one thing that I noticed in comparison to Dean Blandino from the XFL. Pereira likes to stick with the call often, but if you're going to overturn it, make sure you're overturning it with actual clear-cut evidence, in my opinion, because some of the calls that he overturned did not garner, to be turned over. I didn't think it was enough evidence for it to happen. I digress, but either way, that don't impress me much, Mike Pereira and the USFL officials.
Can I add something too? Like,
go ahead, Mark. By all means.
I guess I was gonna do it no matter what. But the issue I had was like it made the games harder to watch because how many times this weekend was everyone just like both coaches are standing around, the refs are trying to figure out what to do. Like no one could figure out the play clock, the how much time should be on the board, where the ball should be located, and it took way too long to get all of that figured out. That was the biggest issue for me, is it made it not enjoyable as a fan to watch these refs stand around and try to figure things out, and both coaches freak out and get frustrated.
Well, I think the Stallions game, Pearce, and you're a Stallions fan, so we can give it to you. But the Stallions and Breakers game, even if you were a Stallions, fan on defense in that situation, like, you had to have been frustrated because it kind of just sucked everything out of the game. Like, there was really no like intense suspense there because it was just like they're all standing around trying to figure out what to do. Or maybe it's just because I'm a Breakers fan, but I don't know if that was your thoughts or not too.
It kind of just cuts off the whole momentum of just watching the game, where it's like, okay, they're doing good, and then you're just waiting. You're just waiting for the call and all that going on, and you're just like, okay, well, now I'm calm. Like, that's the cool thing about football. It's like you got into it. So when your team's going really good with the momentum, you're also like very pumped about it. But then when a penalty like that happens, you're just like, well, I'm just waiting now. Let me go see what's on Twitter. And then, like, one thing that caught me was, like, the very last play with the ball, with the catch. And, like, I was at a restaurant watching the game, and, like, we were ready to go, and they were waiting for me to finish the game. And they're just like, what's going on? Like, is the game almost over? I'm like, I don't know. They haven't placed the ball yet. Like, they don't know what they were doing. So I'm like, let's just go, and I'll just figure it out. Because, like, the game was over at that point, and I was like, just end it. Like, he's just going to toss it deep anyways. It's not going to go anywhere. Just end the game. It doesn't matter.
Well, one of the things that surprised me was on the play before that he ended up overturning, which, again, I wasn't 100% sure that he even ever lost control of that ball. I really don't think he did, because I think he used his other hand to corral it on the flip side. But
did they ever release that angle? Because he said there was an angle from the one camera.
They didn't release the angle, but when he rolled over, you saw the hand that was originally he had. It kind of freelances, like it came off. But when he rolls up, the other hand got the ball to his chest, like it's like tight. So I don't know how he lost that control like that and was able to do that. Again, though, I mean, they never showed the other side of it, but when that happened, they moved the ball up to, like, whatever it was, the 48-yard line or whatever, and then they moved it back. And then after it was already declared an incomplete pass, they moved it back up.
Because I didn't know where it was originally. I guess they forgot.
It was just mind-bogglingly stupid and just caused a lot of issues. Freddie, have you had any issues with the USFL officiating, in your opinion? Because, I mean, maybe we're just being pet.
I think, see, if I remember correctly, we had the Indy 500 on yesterday, so I only got to see the tail end of the first game.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think I saw too much of these issues that you guys are speaking to, but I can say kind of generally, both with the USFL and the XFL earlier this year, is that there seemed to be a lot of issues with the refs and just not knowing what the rules are, sort of like all around, between the refs and the guys up in the review booth and the players and the coaches. And that's not what you want to see in anywhere in football, is guys not understanding the rules and games being won or lost because of a misunderstanding of the rules.
I thought the XFL did a better job overall flowing, but they definitely weren't without their issues, for sure.
Right.
And I want to say Kyle Kirkwood, it was very nice to see him standing after that accident. I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but that was pretty brutal. Right now we're going to head into our fantasy guru, as it literally says on his little caption there. We're going to talk to Mark. Mark, floor is yours, my man.
Awesome. So yeah, we got a few plays going into this week. I think for me, just overall from a fantasy perspective, the biggest thing I'm looking for is usage, volume, and consistent playing time. So Alex Magoo at quarterback, I think pretty much the main reason is, even though he's a pricey player, he's going to be on the field all game. He's considered the best quarterback in the USFL. He can extend plays. He can make plays with his legs. So at the end of the day, we know he's going to be on the field the entire time. I'm willing to go him and pay up at that price point and go that direction. I can also do Troy Williams at 9,100. Houston is the worst statistical defense in almost every single category, and Williams can hurt you not only through the air, but on the ground, more importantly, as well. So I think with Morgan being declared inactive, we'll see. We have to monitor that situation to see if they're going to maybe give some other guys a shot. But I think it's Williams' job here moving forward. So I'm willing to go with him at a discounted price at $9,100. And Case Cookus at quarterback. I was saying before, I do think that he is standing upright a little bit longer throughout games here. So $9,300 is a discounted price point for another player who has been performing and playing a lot better as of recent. I do think that the Stars offense is still going to be a low-owned offense because of how they started this year, and everyone is having a hard time forgetting about how rough of a start they had. So I do think Case Cookus is viable at $9,300 as well. Running backs, I am a big fan of Reggie Corbin. He is a very, very good price point at $7K. New Orleans, as we were talking about, has been surprisingly below average against the run this year, and I think that's the game plan. So until things have changed, I'm going to go with running backs against New Orleans, and I think Reggie Corbin has also seen a higher snap share over Scott over these last 2 games. So I do think he's a good player to go with, and he can also do some work out of the passing game. Wes Hills, $13,100. He is expensive, but as we can all see, just from a visual perspective, he can, play. He can kind of step his game up into another gear, which a lot of players cannot do in comparison. So he's a guy that I do think New Orleans is going to lean on in this game plan going into this matchup against Michigan, and Michigan is more susceptible against the run. I do not want my quarterback dropping back too much with Breland Speaks coming after him. So going to go with Wes Hills on the New Orleans side, and then CJ Marable. I do think it continues here for him. He's played really strong the last couple weeks, and he gets a date with the Stars defense, who has been a league worst against the run. Wide receivers, Isaiah Henney at $8,400. He did catch a touchdown, but saw a dip in targets and catches last week. So I think a lot of people are going to come off of him. He's going to be a lot lower owned than normal. And I do see him having a bounce back week and being centralized in the game plan, especially considering the fact that Pittsburgh is coming off that loss. Johnny Dixon is another guy. He's still way underpriced. Our subscribers over at Fantasy Guru, we've been, beating a drum and playing Dixon every single week since he came back from that injury. He's priced up at $5,400, but still way cheaper in comparison to other guys who see the same type of volume at $9,000. So we'll continue to play Johnny Dixon at that price point. And at tight ends, we've got Jay Sternberger, $8,400. I think he's finally out of the doghouse from the last couple weeks here after that touchdown catch. I do think Skip Holtz will have him a part of the game plan a little bit more moving forward. So $8,400, he's not overly expensive and would be willing to sign up for that, pairing him up with Alex Magoo, who likes to use the middle of the field and extend plays where Jay Sternberger thrives. Sage Surratt, of course, another big name, $9,300. Pretty obvious play, leads the league in catches, but I think a lot of people are going to go a different direction because he is matched up against technically the best defense against tight ends this year according to DraftKings. But when you look at it further, I mean, how many tight ends are actually making a relevant impact on these offenses? I think Sage Surratt, a player who literally leads the league in catches, could have a nice game and maybe even catch a touchdown this week. And lastly, Daniel Helm, $2,500. He's min salary. You can squeeze in a bunch of studs if you go this direction. And he is he's involved every single week, and he has been 1 or 2 catches away every single week from making a much bigger impact on the stat sheet. So $2,500, I'm willing to go after a guy that is giving me 6+ fantasy points a game. If he catches a touchdown, we're talking about double-digit points out of a min salary player. And that is it.
We got to get you a little video, Mark, that leads into your segment, I feel like now. You do such a fantastic job with that. Like, just kind of feel like we're robbing you of a full experience there,
I appreciate that, sir.
Yeah.
It's all part of my process, man. You got to make money somehow, so.
Hey, whatever your process is, keep bragging on Twitter because it's working. It's getting me excited, so.
Trust the process?
Trust it. You got to trust it. I mean, it's clearly working for Mark. So, all right. Well, with that being said, I guess we can jump into our previews for the USFL this upcoming week. Unless anybody else had anything real quick, we can squeeze in real quick. No.
I'm good. I'm ready.
All right, you're ready. We'll start with you, Freddie. We'll start with the first game of on the docket here. The Houston Gamblers at 4-3 against the Pittsburgh Maulers at 2-5. Both teams coming off losses this week. Give us your prediction here.
So the model that I have for predicting games has Houston as 9.30 point favorites, which seems like kind of a lot. I mean, spoiler alert, I have all the South teams favored this week. It's all North versus South games, and I have all the South teams favored by pretty decent margins as far as my model usually goes. But based on knowing that Houston doesn't have such a great defense, and I feel like Troy Williams is kind of only getting started, kind of only getting into his groove. I could see it going the Maulers' way, maybe in a close one. But I feel
Do
like
you have a score prediction for us, Freddie? Or
I'm gonna say Houston by 3. Not a score, but that's my margin. I'm gonna say Houston closer than the model is saying.
All right, that works. We'll go to Pearce since he decided to finally turn that awfulness around on his head there. What about you? What's your prediction for this game?
It's very because obviously Houston offense with Mark Thompson, Justin Hall, really good, but the defense is just not it. And the Maulers is kind of the record. I think they play better than the record. So I think they definitely could put up a fight. And it's really just going to be which offense is going to put up more points to me. And I think it's more interesting. I think it's going to be a bit of a shootout. But I think that Houston's going to scrape by. I'm going to pick Houston for this one, 27-23.
27-23, Houston. All right. Mark, Mark, what do you got for us here?
I got Pittsburgh 24-13. I think that this defense continues to expose Kenji Bahar. I don't think Bahar is playing well right now, and I don't think that the amount of points that they gave up last week is reflective as what they've done on the season. In the fact that they were put in a lot of bad spots last week due to special teams. So I'm going to go with Pittsburgh because I think Houston's defense is god-awful. And I do think this game is going to hit the under. 24-13.
I'm going in a different direction here, and primarily there's two big factors here. How banged up is Mark Thompson, really? Because he was limping there towards the end of the game. He's been running the ball a lot. So how banged up is he really? Because Pittsburgh's defense is filled with hard hitters. Houston's defense is terrible, but they're going against a team that can't run the ball. Dead last in all running the ball. I can't even name their starting running back at this particular moment in time because I don't even know if they have one on roster. And they are way too one-dimensional. Troy Williams is as good as he has played. He is a do-it-all. He can't do it all. And until they get a run game going, I think it's going to benefit Houston, even though they're awful on defense. And I'm actually going to pick the Gamblers to win this game, but it's going to hit the under, like you said, Mark, I think. And I'm going to say 20-13 Houston for me at this point. Freddie, jumping into the second game on Saturday, the Philadelphia Stars coming off a win and leading in the North against the leaders of the South, the Birmingham Stallions. You did mention that the South is favored across the board. Are you sticking true to the model here?
I am. I'm sticking to the model has Birmingham as favorites by 13.17, and I would stick to that. I'd say maybe 2 touchdowns. So let's say Birmingham by 14.
Okay, all right, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't question the consensus that Magoo is the best quarterback in the league right now by far. Cookus does seem to be making strides from a rocky start, but I think Stallions are just the more complete team here.
Okay. Yep. Pearce, Stars, Stallions, battle of number one teams in each of their conferences.
I totally had to look up who the Maulers running back is because I didn't know either, and I still
Groschek?
don't even know who that was.
Groshek?
It was like
Groshek?
Groshek, and then they have a fullback, Mason Stokey. I know him, but like I don't know. But your point still stands on that. But the rematch of the USFL champions from last year, Stallions have stayed basically about the same. Yeah, we lost Gates, and I think we've been playing pretty strong. Like I think we're definitely one of the top teams in there. Are we the best? Up for debate. Stars, though they won, they still haven't been playing good. Let's remember that the last two games was like carried by their kicker and special teams. Like let's just face it that the star team is not as strong as like it's been. So I think Stallions are definitely going to beat them, but I do think the Stars could at least make a run for their money, but not by much. But I'm going to give it to Birmingham 28-21.
28-21. All right, Mark, you sticking on the Birmingham train here? Shoot.
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of what's already been said. So I got Birmingham 34-24. The game hits the over, and Birmingham covers the spread.
The key to this game is ultimately what it boils down to is the Stars, even though they scored 37 last week, they did so against a one-dimensional offense, and special teams played a huge role in it. The previous 3 weeks, it was all field goals. There was no offensive touchdown. Maybe they use that game as the base to get back on it, but until they could put 2 weeks together where it's like really, really solid, I don't think that they have enough to beat Birmingham, especially with the way that CJ Marable has been playing. Marable is going to probably continue to, kind of gash these defenses here. And it's going to lead to a Stallions victory, and I think it's going to hit the over as well. I think it's going to be 31-21, a 10-point victory for the Stallions in this case. I think the South is going to show their dominance. Freddie, the first game on Sunday is the Memphis Showboats coming off a win, one of the best, pass rushes we've seen in the league so far, at least in the second half of the year, going against the New Jersey Generals that seem to be trending in the wrong direction. Are you sticking to the forecast here with the model?
So let me get that model. So the model has the Showboats as favorites by 6.82. They're actually the closest projected of the four. After I think so, the Generals have had 4 straight losses, all by single digits. Before that, they had 2 wins, and the model tends to weigh more recent results more heavily, even though they're losing close games, and so I think that's why it has the Generals out ahead of every team in the North. Actually, they're 5th in the league, but they're top of the North in the ratings. So, one of the things that I mentioned in the chat earlier, before I popped in on the show, was how I think it was the Breakers was the team that we were discussing, and how they are doing in time of possession, and that's something that I've been charting lately, is how teams are doing in time of possession from game to game, and then overall. What I've noticed is that the Generals are by far the lowest in time of possession. The Maulers are the only other team that has not had the ball for at least 200 minutes through 7 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they're just under. It's like 199.8, and the Generals are 191. But I also I went and I tallied up yardage per time of possession, and the Generals are actually doing pretty well in terms of what they're gaining when they do have the ball. The problem seems to be that they're just not having the ball often enough. That it must be like the defense isn't getting off the field, or something like that.
That's a weird number, just because they are a team that's focused around the run.
Yeah. Maybe that's it's, or maybe the stats on the website aren't quite right. But assuming they are right, The Generals are doing pretty well in terms of yardage per minute, I guess. And the Showboats are, I think, the Showboats are on the bottom of that metric. They're only getting, they're last. I forget exactly what this scale is. But time of possession is a tricky thing. It's some teams focus on controlling that. Sometimes it's kind of just sometimes it just fluctuates, and so if the Generals could get that under control, maybe win the time of possession battle in this game, then I think they'd have a good chance. But you can't you can't necessarily count on that. So I'm going to say I'm going to stick with what the model is projecting in terms of the team. But I think I'm going to say the Showboats by 3. I think it's going to be kind of a surprise close one compared to what people might expect.
Yeah, fair. Pearce, what about you? What's your prediction for this one?
So I got one quick question. How good is the Showboats on a run defense?
That is a good question. That's not one I have.
Yeah, the run defense for the Showboats, I feel like might. What do you say, Mark?
Oh no, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, I feel like it's solid, but I don't think it's their strength.
Yeah, because I feel like the big turnout is going to be if Victor is going to be the main guy. Because even with the quarterbacks, quarrel going on, Darius Victor can still run. Yes, he had a bad game, but he had a pretty strong game last week. And I think that can be the defining factor of just how well it is. Because just as for mention, I don't really think Showboats are that great. I think they're playing way better than people are expecting. And I am going to be picking the Generals for this one. I think they somewhat play better than the Showboats. I think it's going to be nasty. I don't think it's going to be a good game. And I think they definitely go under. And I'm going to go with the Generals 20-14.
Mark, are you on the boat of it being on the boat? Showboats. Are you in the boat of saying the under here?
I think it's going to hit the over. Not to be contrarian, but just because I think the game is probably going to, I think there's a lot of field goals in play. I can see the Showboats getting in a good spot from a field winning the battle of field
Position.
Field position. I'm sorry, I don't know why. Position.
It's a tough word.
I know. Apparently. But so I look at this game. I see it as like a 23-20 type game. So that's the score I'm going to go with the Showboats winning, and barely hitting the over. So
you think Brock Miller is going to end up trying to be the MVP of this game again?
Absolutely. He got snubbed last week.
Pearce. That 79-yard punt, he jumped off the field looking like a Grammatica. I thought he was going to tear an ACL.
It was impressive, but yeah.
It was super impressive.
I think special teams does win this game. But I think, like Freddie was saying, I do think you're going to be surprised to see this game be actually pretty close, despite the turmoil at the quarterback position right now.
Quick breaking news. Apparently, DeAndre Hopkins has changed something on his Instagram to a New York Jets logo. Just throwing that out there.
He's chasing for contenders. I'm not putting too much to it.
I'm just letting you know. I just don't know what that means. I don't think the Jets are a contender even with him, but I digress on that note. Just
their wide receiver room's too much. They have too many players already. He's just chasing what are like the sexy looking teams right now. And of course he wants to catch a pass for Aaron Rodgers. It's kind of like he's just trying to show off the market. Like, I want to be with the contenders. Put me with Aaron Rodgers. Blah blah blah.
He does want to win a championship.
Makes me think of what OBJ was doing last year. He was a free agent and probably wasn't ready to hit the field, but still needed the attention, I guess.
He should put up an Albany Empire logo.
He should show up there and then not play.
Yeah, he should do that too. I think that's
just forget to turn in the papers like Jimmy Garoppolo did.
Before this goes completely off the rails, Pearce, you mentioned Darius Victor. He's my wild card in this game. If he can get going, I think the Generals could possibly win this game. Loletta, I'll be very interested to see if they go with a Loletta Prue Cop, at least a little bit of a mixture and sprinkle Prue Cop in there or not. I don't think they're going to be able to win the game whole with Loletta. I think he's got a little mobility to him, but I think he's a little bit too statuesque, and I think that leans into Memphis' strengths, especially with the pass rushing. And then obviously Derek Dillon could easily have a huge game again with Cole Kelly, back there. I'm going to take the Showboats, but this game could go the Generals' way. I think I agree with everybody that it's going to be a close game. I think the Showboats are going to win this game 27-24. Maybe special teams, the last minute field goal gets there of sorts, but I that might be a little ambitious on the score, but that's where I'm going with it. Freddie, the last game of the weekend for Week 8, the Michigan Panthers, who are still at the bottom of a lot of people's power rankings, going against the New Orleans Breakers, who are on a 3-game losing streak. Sadly, does New Orleans get back on the right track here against this Panthers team?
I think they'll win. I'm not sure if you can count a win against the Panthers as getting on the right track, but I mean, it counts the same in the standings. So right now the model has the Breakers as favorites by 12.53. So healthy margin. I don't think they'll necessarily quite perform to that standard. Maybe 10 points. But going back to what I was saying before and what I said in the comments earlier, the Breakers are leading the league by quite a bit in time of possession. They had three of their 4 wins in the 4-0 start. They had the ball for at least 36 minutes out of 60. And they're still doing decently in terms of yards per time of possession, but it's closer to the other leaders. They're not far out ahead in that regard, but they're still doing pretty decently. The Panthers are also one of the top teams in time of possession, and so I think it could be a tough battle in terms of maybe it ends up going the way of whoever can hang on to the ball longer and keep the ball out of the other team's hands. And so I think it'll probably be the Breakers. And I'd say Breakers by 10 is probably my call. I think what we're seeing with MBT is that the experience that he had in the CFL, the experience that was getting him all this hype coming into his USFL stint, I think what you ended up getting was that experience helped him have poise and bring something initially in those first few games. And then once teams kind of caught on to what he does well and what he doesn't do as well, I think maybe that's starting to catch up with him. But Breakers by 10 is my call.
All right, that's fair. Pearce, what about you, my man? What is your thoughts on this game?
Basically, like I said, Panthers are very sporadic. Like, they could be really bad, and then they could just randomly be shooting like 4 touchdowns a game with Joshua Love. It's just so hard to call it. But I do think the Breakers finally break it because they're just the better team overall. I don't see, unless there's a game like that where they're just throwing the ball and they're getting touchdowns, Breakers should be winning this every conceivable way. But we're joking around. I don't think the Breakers are out of the woods with the win, but that's just very much foresight. But I do give this one to New Orleans. I'll go 21-28.
21-28. All right, Mark, as a newly, I don't even know. You know what? Become a Stallions fan, Mark, so they can go on a 3-game losing streak.
I know, right? I should give my fanhood back.
No. We want you over here in New Orleans. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think New Orleans does win this week. I think that Vegas has the line like spot on at 43 points. because I think you are going to see both teams attempt to run the ball. So I got West Hills having a good game. I got Reggie Corbin having a good game. I think the difference here is the fact that Michigan's passing game won't show up like it did last week. So I'm going to go with the Breakers. I've got the Breakers 31-27 in a bit of a shootout here. But the Breakers covering the spread, the game hitting the over, and the Breakers breaking the curse of my fanhood with the team. So
at least that's our hope, anyways. This game comes down to two things for me. A, can New Orleans get a pass rush? Even with the not being able to stop the run, the lack of a pass rush the last few weeks has been really killer. Can they get pressure on Josh Lodge to create the turnovers that Love loves to do, especially when he's under pressure? And Breland speaks against that offensive tackles of New Orleans, because let's face it, the New Orleans offensive tackles have been rather dreadful during this 3-game losing streak. They turned it around a little bit last week against Birmingham. They played much better. But the 2 games prior to that, when they only scored 10 points, it was very, very difficult. New Orleans defense needs to get off the field. If Michigan controls the time of possession, it's not going to go very well for New Orleans, only because that team needs an offensive rhythm. It starts with West Hills. Whether or not they get through to that is a different story. With all that being said, New Orleans, I think I'm so sick and tired of predicting them, though. Let me down the last 3 weeks. I'm so sick and tired of it. But I don't think Michigan is strong enough to be able to win this. New Orleans wins this game in a little bit of a shootout. I agree with you, Mark. I think it's going to be a little bit higher scoring, 34-28 for New Orleans in that game. So.
And I will add, I think that it is really important that they get Surratt with double-digit targets this week.
Yes.
And that would reflect the way that these teams match up against each other, in the sense that short and intermediate routes to Surratt and controlling the ball with West Hills on the ground. I think that's what you need to do. So
a little bit of a bone to pick with you, Mark. No Lee Morris love in your DFS.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, I you know
no,
what?
No love.
When you said that, I did a lineup with him. It cashed.
Oh, you're welcome.
So that was kind of the whole intent of throwing that question out on Twitter there. My Terry Wright lineup did not cash. So not to give Sam
Sam
about that, but
hey.
Also Warren Newman did not cash either. So that was painful. But Lee Morris showing up as a hero.
Yeah. Pearce, real quick, why don't you give us a rundown where we can catch anything that you do, how to get a hold of you at socials, et cetera, et cetera.
So I've been my YouTube channel is just Pearce Sports Productions, pretty easy to find. And then what I have down there is my Twitter handle. I'm very active on Twitter. And then I have my Instagram, which is just Pearce Sports Productions. You can shoot a DM there. You can shoot a DM on Twitter. And YouTube, I've just been rolling. I don't really have what's the word? I don't have a good schedule, I guess. It's I kind of very spontaneous, but I already have some good stuff up there, so just check it out.
Sounds good. Freddie, how about you, my man? Anything that we can get a hold of you, watch for you, and et cetera?
Well, before I drop that, I just want to say, wouldn't it be nice if Michigan could get some packages going for EB? It's really too bad that they couldn't.
Yeah.
You guys were talking about that before. It's really too bad that they couldn't get that going for Week 4 against Cole Kelly and have that be settled. Former Walter Payton Award winners who both finished second in each other's respective winning seasons.
Yeah.
But it's still, it's never too late for a little EB. So it would be nice to see them at least get something going. But where you guys can find me?
It baffles me the lack of love by the coaching staff up there for EB. It's really strange to me. I don't get it.
It would at least be nice to, what do they have to lose at this point? Just put him out on the field, and at least if he's not what they need, at least we know for sure, and we find out, and you don't have us complaining about that. But you can find me on Twitter at Freddie_airmail. I don't tweet too often. I wish I tweeted more. I wish I felt the need to put more of my thoughts out there, but that's still where you can find me in case that ever gets going. And then the next place, the place where I'm the next most active is on Discord. You can find me in the Shady Sports Network Discord and a few other places. You can also catch me on the Twitch for Fan Controlled Sports. Over on their Twitch, I'm on there. I'm going to be doing Tuesday nights from here. So I'll be on the Info Arcade show Tuesday nights at 7 Eastern.
All right. Mark, what about you, my man?
At DFS_Marlin on Twitter, and all of my content I am writing over at fantasyguru.com with Jeff Mans and Elite Sports. Exclusive content, so go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and start winning in DFS with us. We went 3 for 4 on showdowns in the USFL last week. Play all other kinds of sports, and we can pretty much give you guidance and direction on any sport that you are looking to throw money down on.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, I'm here at Shady Sports. I'm here on Spring Football Reports, which doesn't have very many weeks left, but I do write for them occasionally. And I'm on Twitter trying to be a little more active at NW77. 77 is spelled out. And that's about it. I don't do Instagram. I don't really have anything else other than that. You can find me on Facebook at my name. I have the Breakers logo up there if you guys have Facebook. And that's about it. So anybody else have anything they want to add tonight before we sign off here? Any important things? Shout outs?
Shout out to Jinja Ninja. Thank you for subscribing to this channel. Hopefully we don't put you to sleep in the coming weeks.
Yeah. No doubt.
It doesn't feel like it's going to be spring football for too long. I don't know how hot it is where you guys are, but it's.
It was
a window
88
after this, and
I live on the beach.
It's in the 80s.
Yeah, Pearce. Yeah, we get
I'm
it.
good up here.
We get it.
I haven't seen south of 70 since January, so.
Where are you, Mark? You're in Florida, aren't you?
Yeah.
Tampa, yeah.
Tampa Bay Vipers.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm in Maine. So you lose the Vipers out of 2020, and you lose the Bandits out of 2021 or 2022. So,
but I'm still here. So,
but you still got the Rays, right? For now,
but I'm still here. He said, yeah.
We got the Rays for another year, possibly. See.
At least you got the Buccaneers, I guess. But you're not a Bucs fan, are you? No, you're a Vikings fan, aren't you?
Yeah.
Something with the letter V. Something with the letter V for you.
Yeah, I don't know. That's weird.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that now that you say that.
Is V your favorite letter?
Played the fifth, man.
That's going to do it for us tonight. Football reports. Maybe just his logo is just going to be
yeah.
That's all it's going to be for me.
Shout out Notre Dame, 2023 men's lacrosse national champions.
Oh, yeah.
Irish.
Yeah. I'm not a Notre Dame fan. I am not a Notre Dame fan. I'm a Florida State fan. So, and North Carolina. Those are my two teams. I don't know. Maybe
we beat Duke. We beat Duke.
Hey, anytime Duke loses, I'm fine with.
Hey, Brady Quinn went to my high school, so Notre Dame fan for life over here.
Is that really a flex, Mark?
Brady Quinn?
From a Notre Dame perspective.
Just keep it in college.
Okay.
If you just cut it off there, and
if you just stop at Notre Dame,
he never went to the NFL, from what I remember.
Never got drafted.
He just stopped playing after college.
Maybe if we had spring leagues around, he could have played there.
Honestly, he probably would have been a solid quarterback. And
yeah, same as Jimmy Clausen, right?
Yeah,
or that Jack Cohn guy.
Nice little name drops there. Huh? That's gonna do it for us.
I'd take Quinn over Cohn.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. Yeah. I would definitely take. Yeah. No doubt about that. That's gonna do it for us from Spring Football Reports, I believe, this time. Until next week.
This is Brett, and you're watching Shady Sports Network. Tune in, hit that like button.
You might wonder, what do these guys do? player signing announcements. I never in a million years thought you would actually come on to break this news. So without further ado, go ahead and tell everybody what happened today.
Yeah, man. I just had a workout with the Cincinnati Bengals. Signing me right out.
Without further ado, I'd like to announce that, I'll be taking my talents to Salina Liberty.
This just in. The Major League of Football is reportedly collapsing, unable to pay hotel room bills, with players being kicked out of their rooms and hotel managers asking them to leave voluntarily without issue.
And then we got Lions wide receiver Williams is debuting this week as a starter. That's something to look at as far as the eye test goes. And then another one on the eye test is Mostert might be coming back to Miami. And we can see if he has a role in this offense and see if he can be viable for the next couple weeks coming and help us in the playoffs and possibly towards a championship. That would be very nice because he's sitting on my bench right now.